Big achievements come one small advantage at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. Jim Rohn. You have the power to be the boss of your own life. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, entrepreneur, best-selling author, lifelong learner, and your biz bestie. I have a love and passion for all things small business. Growing my own company from $700 to over 7 figures annually, my goal is to bring you inspiration, business-focused topics and tips, encouragement, and a community that helps you launch, grow, and scale your business, whether you are a dreamer, a side hustler, or a seasoned entrepreneur. You are listening to the Become Your Own Boss podcast. As I bring you this episode, I'm excited that our store, Zeus Closet, is celebrating 15 years of existence this month. As I record this episode, 15 years ago today, on Saturday, April 18th, 2009, we opened our store. Our Greek boutique is what we called it. Also, this month, on April 22nd, the Become Your Own Boss podcast celebrates 4 years of existence, starting during the pandemic in 2020. When I tell you this has been the fastest 4 years of my life, it is truly an understatement. As I celebrate these 2 major milestones, I have been given some thought, some prayerful thought on some of the big lessons that I've learned, and I want to share them with you today. Now, technically, we've been in business since 2002. We got this wild idea back in 1999 to reserve a website called stuffforgreeks.com. And so we started that business truly in 2002. However, around 2008, we had this idea of moving our online-only store into a brick and mortar location, primarily because customers had asked for that. Customers wanted to come, they wanted to try on things, they wanted to see things in person. And we began that journey of looking for property. We looked at leasing, we looked at buying, and we landed on buying a location here in West Midtown Atlanta. And it has been very, very good for us, but it has also been somewhat tough in certain times of the business. But I want to just kind of go over some lessons that I've learned and things that I think work in just about every business and things we have to think about. And some of the things that I've learned, and I'll just list them out first and then I'll dive a little bit deeper. But number 1, pivoting is okay and sometimes 100% necessary. Number 2, just start. There are so many quotes around this, but just start. Number 3, there is a big difference between operating an online store versus a brick and mortar store. And number 4, you have to just keep showing up. Of course, there are other lessons, but I don't want this episode to last for hours. So I'm just going to start with those 4. And if some other things pop up, I'll definitely throw those in there as well. First up, pivoting is okay and sometimes 100% necessary. When we initially started our business, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, we opened our retail location with the aim of being a Greek boutique. What this meant was we had the idea of carrying trendy looking clothes, but putting fraternity and sorority letters on them or unique designs that pertain to different Greek letter organizations. I can just remember we had a lot of inventory because we designed maybe 5 or 6 different t-shirt designs for every organization. We also had jackets and a variety of trinkets in stock for organizations so people could come in and shop. However, we quickly figured out that we would not survive if that was all we did. Being a member of a fraternity and sorority is so much fun. It's amazing. You have the community. It's great. But we have cycles of when we do things. And typically October through December, we would be busy. March through May, we would be busy. The other months, it was gradual. It wasn't as busy. And so we had to figure out, how can we sustain the store and make sure that we're busy 12 months out of the year? Now, there's still ups and downs in businesses. Typically, they call it the J months, January, July, June, can sometimes be down for certain businesses. But we had to figure out how to fill in that space. We began to get people coming into the store who were either business owners or looking for things for businesses. And we also ended up getting costume designers coming in looking for things because I think they would look at the things that we had on our shelf and say, well, if you can make that, surely you can make this as well. And I can remember specifically one costume designer coming in, and she wanted to see if we could make some t-shirts for a movie that Nicolas Cage was in. Well, this was very exciting. And we said, sure, we can do that. And she came back to us multiple times. But once we saw that there was a need in these other industries, we started going after them. So we found magazines to market in and variety of ways to reach other costume designers and other businesses. And so that kind of became one of our focuses to make up the difference. We also pivoted in that we went from having a huge, probably 800 square foot store to leasing that space out and moving our retail space into a smaller area of our office. What this did, though, was it changed our customers' mindset. We made our products appear more custom. And so when you came in, you knew it was more consultative. We would meet with you and talk about what custom item you wanted to make. Even though we did keep some retail items that people could walk in and buy for their fraternity or sorority, we dwindled that down quite a bit. And we probably made that space about 1/8 of the space that we initially set out to do. But that allowed us to communicate to our customers in a different way. And once COVID hit, which we all had to pivot a bit during that time, we went to by appointments because we didn't want a lot of customers in the store at the same time. And that has been one of the greatest things we could have done because it allows us to free up personnel. We don't need a lot of people in there. Whereas before we had 4 people in the front office that would handle customers as they came in randomly. But now we really only need 1 person. And if you didn't have an appointment, then it's okay. You can come in, but you're going to have to wait until after the person with an appointment. Most people are super gracious and more than happy to wait. But that was a pivot that we made during COVID, and it's been one that we've been very happy with. In addition, back in like 2014, 2015, we lost one of our bigger clients, and we had to fill in that gap. So we offered different services. One of the things we changed was instead of telling customers, well, the fastest rush we could do is 2 weeks, we ended up creating a calculator where now we offer same day and next day services. You pay a lot more, but if you need it really fast, we can do it for you. So those were just a few pivots that we've made over the past 15 years to make sure that our business sustained. And I think for any business owner, I was speaking to someone recently, it may have been an interview, but I've also heard this before. I think Tony Robbins has said it. You know, the biggest job of an entrepreneur is to solve problems. Our business solves a problem initially, and then within the business, you're constantly solving problems. You're solving your customer's problem, whatever that may be. You're solving a team member's problem. You're solving other issues that may pop up in the business. If someone is asking for something that you don't normally do, can you direct them to someone else? Or is it something that you've had enough customers ask about that you're willing to do? So pivoting is a thing in business, and sometimes you have no choice but to do that. And just actually pray that the pivot is what can truly help you sustain and grow your business. Next is just start. You know, oftentimes we tell ourselves that things need to be perfect or they need to be a certain way before we can start. But I truly believe that if you can start, you can learn so much in the starting process. You may not have all of the T's crossed and all the I's dotted, but you just have to start. And you'll learn what adjustments or pivots you need to make once you do. So I want to recommend, or this is something that we've learned, is that start. Sometimes I call it throwing things against the wall, because sometimes if you're trying to make sure that you can make the revenue you need to make to sustain your business, you're trying to keep your team members happy, you're trying to find new team members, you have to try different things. And you have to start those things. So I like to say, don't aim for perfection, but aim for preparation. So you want to be prepared, but you don't have to be perfect. You just want to be prepared to take the steps you need to start. A big thing that I learned also during this process is there's a big difference between operating an online store and a brick and mortar store. And when you're operating both, you have to decide how you're going to do that. We operate both. We didn't stop our online store. And these days, you should have an online presence no matter what. I mean, if you have a brick and mortar store, you should have an online presence. You should still sell stuff online. You should ship out, all of that good stuff. We went from a position of being online only, which gave us a lot more flexibility in our schedules, to a brick and mortar location. And what that meant was if Ethan or I weren't at the brick and mortar location, someone had to be there. And initially, when we started our business, we were open from, I believe, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., or it may have been 10 to 6. I don't really remember. But I do recall we always had to have someone staffed during those times. Again, the great thing now about having appointments is we're typically there a certain amount of hours. But if we don't have an appointment, or if we need to block out something, which sometimes I have to, or we have to, because we want to go see our kids in an assembly that's in the middle of the day, or whatever the case may be, we can block out that time with the appointments. But before, we had to have people. We had to have staff there because we had these hours on Google, on the website. We had to have people staffed there. And so that's one thing you want to think about. If you want to open a brick and mortar location, there's a lot more overhead to that. There's also a lot more time commitment to that. And if you are in a shopping center or a mall, you have to look at your contract very closely, because sometimes they will have things within those contracts that require you to be open so many hours a day or specific hours a day. So make sure you're reading the fine print. There's amazing things to being online. But one of the reasons we opened a brick and mortar is because we did really have a lot of customers asking us, why don't you have a place so I can come and try this on, or take a look at this, or feel it? And it has been a great move for us, truly, but it has also had its challenges. Again, the overhead, there's electricity, there's the building, there's just a lot more. And then there's the upkeep of the building. And because we decided to buy, even though we bought it under another company name, because that's another thing from a legal perspective, you don't really want your different types of companies to commingle with others. You want to have some separation of liability and that type of thing. But when we bought our building, that company has to maintain the building because the building is rented to our other company. Therefore, there's a lot of other stuff we have to think about. But I can remember some years ago, I was part of a group. I won't call any names, but I was part of a group with coaching, and we were going through a really tough time of like just kind of managing it all, the building, paying the mortgage for that, paying the rent for that so the mortgage could be paid, and also dealing with like stuff going on in the store. And I was talking to a coach that was part of a very big name program. And he said to me, he said, well, why don't you just sell your building? You're not in the real estate space. You're in, this designer creative space. And honestly, that really frustrated me and made me rethink that relationship, because I always learned, one, that real estate is very good for your portfolio. I've also been taught that you should diversify. You shouldn't have all of your eggs in one basket. So the goal for us was, we have this business that's generating revenue, but we also have this building that we will someday own, and we will actually own it in a few years. When my daughter graduates from high school, we will be done with this building, paying for this building. We will actually own it, and then we can rent it out to other people, or we can do whatever we want at that point. But we can do whatever we want at this point too. But the company that gave us the loan for the building, the bank, they actually really liked the fact that we had a viable company going into this building immediately, and we didn't have to worry about finding a renter. So there was a plus to that. Again, there are pros and cons to every decision we make as business owners. And if you're going from an online business to opening or adding a brick and mortar, just kind of think about the pros and cons of that, and go for it. If you feel good about it, go for it. Give it a shot. Again, be willing to pivot, be willing to change course if you have to. And, get a coach if you need one, but make sure that coach understands what your overall goal is for your business and for your life. So anyway, I ended that coaching relationship because it just didn't feel right to me I should say I could tell that person was scripted and they weren't necessarily a business owner themselves. They were in a training program and taught to say these things. So that was not the right coaching program for me. When I initially put together this episode, this was not one of my points that I considered something I learned or a takeaway in the past 15 years. But I was in this room that I go into on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is still a thing, y'all. But I was in a room on Clubhouse that I go in twice a week, typically if my schedule permits. It's called the Cup of Joy Room. And I was shouting out my cup of joy of Zeus's Closet being open for the past 15 years. Very grateful for that. And also shouting out the fact that the podcast is 4 years old on the 22nd of this month. And there was a lady in there who said, "You kept showing up." And that is one of the biggest lessons. And I've said it in other episodes. This is one of Ethan's big things, is like, show up, just show up. That's how he ended up getting his first initial contract with Tyler Perry, is he showed up before he was the Tyler Perry. But anyway, she said to me, "You just kept showing up." And that is a lesson that I want you to take. You have to keep showing up. Even when it's hard, even when it's tough, even when there are tears and pain and aches, you have to keep showing up. And as the quote at the top of this episode that I read by Jim Rohn, big achievements come one small advantage at a time, one step at a time, one day at a time. So even when things are hard, even when things are tough, even when things are brilliant and beautiful and wonderful, you still have to keep showing up. Because if you can show up, if you're healthy and you can keep showing up, you're living to fight another day, to make this work, to have your business be a presence on this earth, in this world, and to truly make a difference in someone else's life. And sometimes I'll say, what difference is a jacket really making? Because we make these really cool looking jackets that are creative and tell a story. But sometimes I think, but I want to do something bigger. I want to do something that really changes the world, that makes a huge difference in the world. But truthfully, when people wear these jackets or wear their items that they get from us, be it a fraternity and sorority item or a business item, or I had a lady the other day just came in. She came and got polo shirts for her husband's birthday, and he has a DJing business, but he's never really gotten anything made for him to really advertise his business. And she was like, "I want to get this as a gift for him." By the way, if you know someone who has a business, this is a great gift to give them. If they don't have branded gear already, give them a shirt with their logo on it. Not only will they be excited, but it really makes their business seem so much more solid, and you really will come off as being very, very supportive also. But that's the thing, is seeing people with these items, they're happy. It tells a story for them. It makes them feel really good. And so that is my joy, right? That is something that I've learned, and it keeps me going. It keeps me showing up. It keeps me wanting to make sure that this business is here for the next person, so that they have that same happiness and joy when they pick up their jacket or when they get their jacket in the mail, because we still ship out lots of boxes a day. But that's what we want for people. We want their story to be told through the gear that they're wearing. We have a few different taglines in Zeus's Closet that we use. We say we're like a tattoo shop for your clothes, because we are. We put cool artwork on clothing. We also like to say, wear your passion on your fashion, because for the most part, the things that people are wearing, they're passionate about. They're passionate about their organization, be it a fraternity or sorority or their church or their business. They're passionate about those things. And so we get to share in that passion. We get to share in their story. And that has been such a joy over the past 15 years. And just really quickly, doing this podcast for the past 4 years has been a joy for me as well. I've enjoyed talking to other entrepreneurs. I've enjoyed sharing my stories. And I pray that you, as a listener, is getting something, a nugget every week from this show that you can add to your business or something to consider taking away from your business. Whatever the case may be, I hope it's making a difference to you. Ethan asked me one day, he said, "What's your hobby?" And I said, "Gosh, do I even have hobbies? I don't know. I run our business, or we run our business. I help, we have kids. So we stay pretty busy. But this podcast is really, truly my hobby. I'm not out trying to truly monetize it. I think it does bring, people to our business and things like that. But that part is not super important to me. The important part is that I hope that I'm helping make your life a little bit easier as a business owner, helping you to learn something or learn from a mistake that I made or learn from a pivot that I made or help you consider something or share something that can help you in your business. That is the goal for this podcast. I want to thank you for listening. As always, I'm grateful for the fact that you choose to listen to this podcast, that you choose to subscribe and download each week. And if you're not doing that, then subscribe and it will come to your phone every single week. And if you don't mind taking a moment to go over to Apple or Spotify and actually rate the podcast, that would be amazing. That's also very, very helpful for the podcast to grow. If you could take the time to do that, that would be awesome. And then lastly, if there's anything I can do to help you in your business, I often say, I want to be your biz bestie. And I truly do. I know that it helps to have someone who understands what you're walking through and what you're going through every single day. It is not easy, but it can be fun. It's not always fun, but it can be fun. And so sharing that with someone else can be amazing. Remember, now is the time, not tomorrow, because you want to start, but now is the time to level up, leave a legacy, and become your own boss.